we're still waiting for a quorum. We're still waiting for a quorum.
I have an injury, but.
Okay, good. Well, we're still waiting for a quorum, so we'll put you on.
I think you have 5 guests here.
That's right. Hold on. Good morning. How are you? Barbara is on the phone.
Morning.
1, 2, 3. More than we have now. Elliot, what do we need for a quorum?
50%. So we have a quorum currently. So we've got Barbara Hoffman is on the phone.
Yep.
There'd be no math.
5.
I know, Todd. I'm with you on that.
So Secretary Churchill won't be here today.
Oh, well,
Okay.
thanks for letting us know that. Because I was going to hold it up for EC, but. Pardon me? Yes, thank you. So we do?
Yeah, we have Barbara Hoffman
We
on
have
the phone,
5?
so we have
All
5.
right, okay. Well, then we're going to begin the October meeting of the IAC. Welcome to everyone. And Barbara Hoffman, Senator Hoffman is on the phone right here next to me. So we'll acknowledge that throughout the meeting. I believe that we have a quorum, and we have one addition to the agenda. This will be item number 10, and this item is in your books. This is the enhanced approval packages, and that's item number 10. We have one public comment today, and that is Teresa Benson. Teresa, if you're here, would you come forward to the podium, please, and make sure your mic is on? Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, state your name. And you have 3 minutes to provide comments to us, and the IAC members are here just to listen. We're not here to respond. So Cassandra, if you'll begin the timer. And you may begin. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Teresa Benson. I work for CT Electrical. We're an electrical contractor in Anne Arundel County. And we just bid on some jobs in Anne Arundel County, school projects, Tyler Heights and Edgewater. And we were rejected because of our MBE paperwork, but they have since let us, we filed an appeal and we won the appeal. But when we had went down to, my coworker and I went down to meet with Vincent O'Brien and Esther Avery from Anne Arundel County, she's in charge of the MBE. She had said that, and I don't understand how this all works, I'm kind of just new to this, but she had said that IAC creates this form. Does anybody know? For attachment A?
I believe it was originally created by the IAC.
Okay. That was just mainly my question because, she had rejected for a clerical error, but our point was that it says right here, may render. So, it doesn't say shall, but it says may. So that should give you a chance to change your paperwork. But since then, since I've signed up to come, we've already found out that we won our appeal, so we will be getting those jobs. But I just wanted to know kind of the process of how the IAC works and how it goes as far as the MBE goes. But if you can't respond.
No, I can't, but we can certainly have you call the office, and we'll try to set a time up to give you that explanation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate your
Bye-bye.
comments. All right, so,
Secretary Churchill has designated, I didn't give you.
okay, I'm sorry. So Secretary Churchill has designated Clarence, and your last name?
Felder.
Felder, to be sitting in today to the IAC. Thank you, Clarence. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
So if we could have approval of the minutes from September. We have a motion? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. We have any questions, concerns, comments? If not, let's vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Barbara, are you okay with the minutes?
Barbara?
I think we've lost her.
Barbara? I'm not hearing her, but we are still connected.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you
Are you
now.
okay with the minutes?
Yes.
All right, so we have unanimous approval. Thank you very much. So for the first item, we have a consent agenda, and I'm sorry, I took the minutes out of order. Do we have an approval for the consent, a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All right, do we have any questions? All right, do we have, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, consent agenda is approved. Let's move on to the Baltimore City request for rescissions and amendments to the FY 2019 Capital Improvement Program, and this is Section 2 in your books.
Madam Chair, we have a motion to approve a request from Baltimore City Schools, and that's to rescind $10.15 million on 10 projects, and an appropriation on the project and 9 FY 19 projects, 18 CIP projects, and transfer that 10.15 to the statewide contingency amount for Baltimore City Schools. And then to amend, the same motion amends the 19 CIP to include 8 projects and allocate $24.74 million from the statewide contingency reserve. And Jamie will explain this, but the intent is to keep projects moving. Jamie?
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Good morning, Commission.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. The request is the outcome of an iterative collaboration between staff to the IAC and staff to the Baltimore City Public Schools Operation Office to deliver 8 projects to the students of Baltimore City Public Schools in the fastest and most cost-effective manner. 7 of the projects before you for amendment are mission critical, or rather contribute to a safe and suitable environment for education, roofs, HVAC, and the like. And the total allocation associated with all projects to be amended is just about $25 million. And so I would add at a consistent 4% annual escalation cost in construction. The allocation that would be needed to fund those projects next year would be $26 million and almost $26 million. And the year after, over $27 million. So if there are any questions about the projects or the process, I stand to take them.
Secretary.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just our background information indicates that Baltimore City provided an explanation for the need to rescind each allocation. Can you give us the general basis of that explanation?
There were a number of different reasons, and certainly some projects had multiples. The impact of partial funding on capital projects in the 2017 and 2018 CIPs was certainly prevalent, as was a number of other reasons, mostly related to bidding and budgeting.
Was there an issue with estimating the cost of the projects?
Absolutely, absolutely. To be brief, a challenge that Baltimore City Public Schools has often faced is that they have been unable to complete design work until they were fully funded for projects. And so if you could see the challenge with that, they would have to estimate the project cost before they had a solid design. And so that would make estimating a little more difficult than had they had full funds in place before they or to submit a request for an allocation. We have Director Gorel and I visited with the city when we first received the rescission request in May, and we talked about how we could deliver these projects as fast and as cost-effective as possible, and also make sure that we had to have these conversations a little less, no doubt. And so one of the things we learned was that the auditors for city schools had prohibited the use of local capital funds on design prior to full allocation because they followed state procedures to not fund design with capital dollars. But that was not a requirement, and we worked with the Department of Budget and Management to verify that that was in fact not a requirement, and they have since started to work with internally to figure out how they can use their capital dollars to fund feasibility studies and preliminary design as well, so to improve the accuracy of their cost estimation.
Louder, please.
Oh, I sure can. Nobody has ever said that to me. Thank you. So they have. So they are working internally to figure out ways to then use their capital dollars to fund design and feasibility work to improve the accuracy of their estimates.
Okay, it was indicated to us that they're adding estimation expertise to their mix to try to make sure these estimates come back better.
Absolutely. They have an open position, at least, that will look to do that, and they in fact also have money set aside as per the comprehensive maintenance plan that provides for staff development.
Thank you.
Sure.
Jamie, I just want to compliment you and Director Gorel on getting that audit situation straight, because that has been an issue for the last few years. And so thank you for clearing that up, because then they can go ahead and get their design done. So I think that's a great compromise, and I'm hoping that we'll see less and less of these revisions or rescissions, whatever we call them, to going forward, because that's really an issue for them getting their schools done.
Absolutely. I think that is safe to say that we would all like that.
Madam Chair, I'd like to compliment Baltimore City as well. Lynette Washington is in the audience, Dr. Washington.
Hi, Dr. Washington.
Because it does take the willingness to listen and to talk about things and kind of
Right.
open them up before you can discover what can be improved.
Right, well, we all want the same thing, and that's for the schools to be functioning better for our kids, so thank you for your work with us. All right, we've had two more folks join us, so welcome, good morning.
Sorry to be late.
That's all right. We've had a quorum. Senator Hoffman's on the phone, so we've been functioning, so. All right, thank you, Jamie. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our third tab, which is the Educational Specification Workgroup Appointments. This is found on page 55 through 58.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am the chair of this work group. It's part of HB 1783. And our tasks are located on the back page of the motion. But they are essentially to overview the square footage that's required for education, the cost per square foot, updates on how that we do these estimated calculations, the state-rated capacity, and a number of other factors, with the purpose to be to develop clear information for measuring and pass that information on to the funding work group, which will occur later on in the year of 19, we believe. May of 19 would be the date that we think they're going to start, when they also have the preliminary information from our assessment, plus the recommendations from this work group. Here today, I'm asking for the IAC to approve the list of appointments. Some are statutory, Senator Ferguson, Senator Rosapep, Delegate Chang, and Delegate Grist are those statutory members. And then the other requirements are that we are to draw from local education agency, facility designers and planners, and other members with expertise in school design and construction. So on the local education agency, facility designers and planners, I'd like to recommend Danielle Haley. She's supervisor of facilities. It's the small county, representing small counties from Somerset. Lisa Seaman Crawford, Anna Rundle, Director of Facilities, Cindy Smith, who also is in the audience from Baltimore City with expertise in planning and design. She's Director of Design and Construction for Baltimore City. Other members with expertise, Bob Wilkinson, he's Director of Maintenance. Frederick, Mr. Gibbons has volunteered as an IAC member, and so I think that is very good, as well as his expertise as a developer. And Mr. Lombardo, also an IAC member with expertise as a builder, and both served on the Knott Commission. So we have all of those discussions that occurred in the Knott Commission, why these work groups are here, and to be able to carry that information and knowledge forward. Chris Parts has asked to be on this, and he'll represent he's an architect, done school building, has asked to represent the American Institute of Architects that have a committee on architecture for schools, to be able to have expertise and from his peers. And Kathleen Sherrill, who is an architect that also was on the Knott Commission. So we've got, I think, a good pollination, good group, and each of these members will, of course, reach out to their constituents so that we're broadly represented.
Any questions? Sounds like you've got a really good group of folks on the slate, and I appreciate the members of the IEC that have volunteered to be on the committee. So if there's no other questions, do we have a motion to approve the new educational specifications work group? We have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll get to start putting together an agenda, and we'll inform the IAC of our progress.
Thank you very much. All right, now we're going to move to section 4, which is a change order transition policy and administrative procedure guide revisions.
Kim?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Kim?
Good, thank you. The item that you have before you has two purposes. It's a procedure for change orders for projects approved prior to the enactment of House Bill 1783, and also the request to approve a revision to Section 305 change orders of the Administrative Procedures Guide. I'm not going to read everything in there, but the procedure will hold harmless those LEAs that were counting on eligibility review of change orders by DGS for approval of the available project contingency, while allowing those other LEAs the option to have their contingency reverted right away and assigned to other eligible projects. The second part of the item is to approve a revision to Section 305 change orders of the Administrative Procedure Guide. As noted in House Bill 1783, change orders are to be considered a local obligation. So we've modified the administrative procedures to state that. You can see that's the old procedure is included in the binder, and then the new procedure, which is quite shorter, and just indicates that the LEAs are now responsible for all change orders to contracts. So if there's not any question, I can read the motion.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Spivey? All right, go ahead and read the motion.
To approve the transitional policy for change order submission and review as applicable to projects approved through the FY 2019 CIP, and to approve the revision to Section 305 change orders of the Administrative Procedures Guide.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Move. Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much, Kim. Now if we can go to Section 5 in your binder. This is the fiscal year 19 non-public aging school program. Mr. Mason is going to lead us through this section.
All
Good
right.
morning.
Good morning. First item is to approve the
procedures to release the applications for the FY 2019 non-public aging schools program, which allocates $3.5 million based on some threshold criteria, as well as some criteria that lead to additional funding based on percentage of students qualifying for free and reduced meals, as well as the age of the facility. And this is to approve the procedures and to release the application so that the non-public aging schools can begin applying for these funds. The application period would continue through December, with the allocations made in 2019, typically by March. And any questions?
And this is 3.5 million total
Correct.
that's going to be allocated to non-public schools.
So, can I have a question?
Absolutely, please.
Only because I'm completely against.
Is
You
your
have to
mic
turn
on?
your mic on.
Just press one time.
I don't see a red light.
It's very
It's
faint.
very faint.
All right, am I alive?
No, one more time.
Forget the red light on top.
All right.
There we
So,
go.
just so I'm clear, the legislature has set the 3.5 million to go to the non-public schools, and we are essentially creating the regulation that, the criteria through this motion, and that wasn't part of the bill.
We
correct?
are approving the
Release of the funds.
procedures and allowing the application process to begin. The criteria are stated in the
Part of the
legislation.
original bill.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thanks. Sorry.
No, that's a good question. I mean, these are all, this is new ground for many of us around the table. Yes, Dick?
Second question, I wanted to confirm that the maximum per school is 100,000?
The maximum is 100,000, based on the number of applications and the number of schools eligible for each maximum level. The funds are then prorated, so most recently, the actual levels were 8,000, 24,000, and 32,000. Because the 3.5 million is not enough to fund the maximum.
And will this be funded annually?
That is up to the General Assembly. So it's subject to each year's budget. So this is the FY 2019 funds.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Where is the actual application? Is that in our packet? Is that,
The application is somewhat lengthy, so we did not print it, but it is
You have an outline.
available on the website, and they document the age of their facilities. They document that their tuition is below the statewide per pupil expenditure, and they document their eligible free and reduced meals percentage. So it's documentation that they meet the threshold, and then they provide a description and an estimate of the project that they intend to perform, and it's a reimbursement of funds.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's defined on page 69 and 70 in terms of the process and what has required to be part of the application.
And Mr. Schuler, we'll send a link out to all the members so that you can go look at it.
Thanks.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell me the percentage of schools that are 50 years and older? Do you have an idea?
No, but I will get back to you with that. Yeah, I'll get back to you with that.
Non-public?
This is of the non-public
Non-public.
schools.
Okay. Thank you.
right, any other questions?
Just want to
Secretary?
confirm if someone's not happy with the decision made to fund a project, they have an appeal to this body, correct?
I'll confirm that, but I believe so,
Yes.
but it's based on the,
It's on page
on
7.
meeting the criteria, but yes.
Thank you.
71.
Thank you.
And all they
Thank
have
you,
to
I
do
found
is
it.
send us a letter.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay. All right, other questions? All right, Fred, would you read the motion?
Certainly. To approve and release the applications for the FY19 non-public aging school program pending additional revisions by IAC staff and legal counsel. The final applications will be available when the IAC approves the application forms and may be released immediately.
All right, do we have a motion to approve? All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And I know you're going to be up here for the next item. So if we'll turn now to section 6 in your books, we're going to talk about the non-public aging schools program safety improvement approval. And this again is to release applications for funding.
Correct. Item 6 is to, again, approve the application process and release applications for the non-public aging schools safety improvements, which is also $3.5 million. This program was created by the General Assembly in FY19 and has somewhat different eligibility. Well, it has the same threshold criteria, has different funding distribution criteria. The minimum is $5,000. The maximum is $65 per student, and that can be increased to a maximum of $85 per student, where at least 20% of the students are eligible for free and reduced meals. And the safety improvements program includes preschools.
Okay, questions about this? And again, there is some additional information on page 78 through page 83. And welcome Gloria Laylaw. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So we do have full attendance today. Thank you. Questions for Fred on the safety program improvement release? All right, seeing no questions, would you read the motion?
Yes. To approve and release the applications for the FY19 non-public aging school program safety improvements pending additional revisions by IAC staff and legal counsel. The final applications will be available when the IAC approves the application forms and may be released immediately.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Mason. Now let's turn to section 7. This is the approval of property transfer. And welcome, Michael.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm bringing to you a property transfer in Frederick County. In this case, the Frederick County Division of Fire and Rescue Services has long considered the Frederick County Board of Education property on Thomas Johnson Drive, north of Hayward Road, as a high-priority site for a new fire station. Rapid growth in the area has generated increased call volume for fire and rescue services, and the existing fire station that serves the area is located in downtown Frederick. This 2.65 acre parcel has not been used for educational purposes and has never been intended for that purpose. And the reason that we're visiting it here is because it is Board of Education property. The BOE has been thinking about it as for use as a parking lot, to give you a sense of that. The county executive was involved in this process and asked the Division of Public Works to review the site and verify that it would be appropriate for the use as a fire station. The county executive then requested that the Board of Education transfer that property to the county government for this purpose. And the Board of Education declared the property surplus on January 24th of this year and approved the transfer to Frederick County.
I would think it would be very advantageous to have the fire company next to the warehouse, just in case.
Sure, absolutely.
Any questions for Michael? All right, do we have a motion? Well, I guess you can read the motion for us,
Sure,
please.
absolutely. The motion is to approve the transfer of 2.65 acres of vacant land known as Lot 25, located adjacent to the Frederick County Public Schools warehouse on Thomas Johnson Drive, to Frederick County government for the purpose of constructing a fire station.
All right, do we have a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now let's go to section 8, and this is the approval of the annual maintenance of Maryland Public Schools building report. And we have a nice report to review with pictures and everything. And Joan, our deputy director, is here to review this with us. Thank you, Joan.
Good morning, Commission members. Before you is the final draft of the FY 2018 Annual Report on Maintenance of Maryland's Public Schools. This is the 12th edition of the annual report as you see it, in the format it is in. As indicated in the agenda item, we are requesting your approval for release of the report to the Department of Budget Management and to the Governor's Legislative Office for their review. The report will then be published and copies will be submitted to the presiding officers of the General Assembly and to the Governor as required by Education Article 5.310. Of the 199 reported school assessment results, 3 schools were rated as superior, 85 schools were rated as good, 101 schools were rated as adequate, 10 schools were rated as not adequate, and 0 schools were rated poor. I need to point out in the report that you have, that has been distributed, there's a small omission, and that is Frederick Douglass High School in Baltimore City is not showing up in Table C, but it is showing up elsewhere in the document, and we will make that small correction before we distribute the document any further. So I think it's important to consider that the ratings of the schools for each LEA can be affected by a few things. For example, the sample of schools selected for assessment in a year may not be fully representative. Also, we do take care in attempting to ensure that the age of the school or the age of the system in a school does not affect the survey scores, but this is sometimes difficult to differentiate. I also want to note that we surveyed slightly less schools this year. We originally scheduled 220 schools, but this number was reduced for 2 reasons. First, we introduced a new practice to not survey schools that are less than 3 years old. So we didn't report on 4 schools that had already gone through the survey process. And the other issue is that one of our 2 assessors resigned in the spring of this year. We were able to fill that position with a new assessor, but a small amount of time had gone by and we had to reduce the number of schools surveyed during that period. For the last several years, we've had 4 positions on the maintenance team. Of these 4, only 2 are currently filled. I stand for any questions you might have.
I just want to say one thing, and it really is, the old IAC talked a long time, 3 years ago, about doing a differentiated kind of a look across the state, and this report reflects that. And so I want to commend the staff for implementing that and making sure that we got to the places where we needed to be more, that had not had the best reviews in the past, and it reflects, I think, what we see in this report. And I think that's been really great. It's made a huge difference in the ability to get the work done. And so, thank you, thank you, Joan, for getting that done.
Madam Chair, if I could say, there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into
absolutely.
putting this together, and a lot of information that, as we move forward, we're going to learn how to use better. Part of 1783 directs us to start developing best practices.
Right.
So to be able to look at these high-need schools and what is working for other schools in a better way than these schools and share that information will be important. And as we build the maintenance staff, then we'll be able to have this two-way communication that is so important. And I'd like to recognize Jen and Mike, if you guys would stand up. These are our two
That's right.
assessors, and
Thank
they're
you.
always out on the road, going and looking at these schools and pulling these reports together, and then sending the information to the LEA so that they can say, is it right? Tell us what you don't like about it, and getting that feedback to begin the discussion.
Right.
Thank you.
It's very important.
It's a hard
Very
job.
important
Thank you.
work, it is. You're everywhere, I know. Thank you both. Questions? Secretary McCord.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, Frederick Douglass High School, you mentioned.
Yes.
It's not on the list for renovation or replacement. Am I correct in that?
Let me bring up our CIP manager, and Jamie Bridges also, who's the Baltimore City program manager.
The project was recently funded for HVAC in FY 2018. It received additional funding. But no, I don't think that it's on
Ben Franklin High School, I'm sorry.
Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass High School is
Move
not.
the mic around.
Yeah, move the mic around, Jamie.
Excuse me.
Frederick Douglass High School is not on the list of schools to surplus nor to renovate per the 21st Century Schools Project. However, if a review of its facility inventory sheet shows that its roof was replaced within the last 10 years, its windows were replaced within the last 10 years, and it has been funded for vertical package classroom air conditioning units, which also provide heating and outside air ventilation. And that was funded in the FY 18 CIP, as Arabia said.
Thank you, appreciate the update.
Other questions?
In reading the criteria that you use to evaluate the school's programs, one of the criteria I think I read is that semi-annual roof inspections are required.
That's correct.
I was struck by semi-annual. It seemed twice a year roof inspections is, for such a long-term asset, it seemed more than might be necessary, more often than might be necessary.
What I can tell you is that a number of years ago, there wasn't a requirement for roof assessments in the General Assembly. The Board of Public Works were very much concerned about that, and by a number of years ago, I'm saying like 15 years ago. And so at that point, this was initiated. And from what we can observe in the field, it seems that it's an appropriate amount of time for the LEAs to have this done. But we can always take a look at that at any time and reassess.
I'm not questioning the need to have roof inspections done and done regularly. I was questioning whether twice a year is perhaps more often than it might be practically necessary to do.
Like I said, we will take a look at that.
And that could be something you bring up on the new committee.
We absolutely can. I would like to comment that roof failures is enormous among school facilities. It's an asset that you're not up there looking at very often, as you know, and if the warranty can demonstrate that there have not been observations of the roof so that items that are failing are documented to the manufacturer. That can void a warranty. So it's a high area of risk, and I wasn't around when that was put into place, but when I first came here, I thought that's a very good practice, seeing failures elsewhere. But we will take a look at that, and then I think it's worth discussing it also amongst the maintenance managers throughout the state, and just see what their policies are. I would say that as we are able to have more construction maintenance management systems that are electronic, where we have definite times to go up and look at things, and we have a definite record of the observation of the roof, as well as all other preventive maintenance, we might be able to have longer periods of observation between a roof. And if it's not just twice a year regularly, maybe it's every 8 months, and make sure that when we do look at the roof, it's during the wet periods of the year. So I think it's an area that deserves more consideration.
I have a brief comment as well.
Yes, please.
In light of what you're was expressing concern about twice annually. I know, being a field guy, also for roof inspections, it was a seasonal thing, the change of the heat and cold, the contraction. So that type of material always is movement and allows for compromising of the membranes, and so that's why it was constantly done twice annually. And also for safety reasons as well. A lot of times with settling, you'd get puddling of water and icing up. You got the maintenance units up there, so just to avoid those kind of situations as well.
Good points. Yes, Brian?
This is the report that's done every year. So this
Yes.
is the annual maintenance. And are we not doing a comprehensive third-party analysis of all this?
No. Some of the inspections are done locally if they have assets able to do that. And then sometimes they're hired with a contractor. We're not receiving the information in an organized way to be able to compare them. But I think that's an opportunity as well. We just don't have a business management system in place to accept that information currently.
But didn't one of the recommendations by the NOC Commission was to have every school with the third-party maintenance analysis like we're talking about?
The part of the recommendation of the NOT Commission was to have standardized preventive maintenance processes. In fact, HB 1783 requires that that's a separate submission to the IAC. It currently is a part of the full maintenance plan of a school, of the comprehensive ownership and maintenance program. And we are to develop with standard industry measures a way of comparing one school against another school, one part of a roof, for instance, and another part of the roof, the changing of filters, the rate that we do that, and the number of men per square foot, the number of custodial per square foot. All of those things we have to develop standards for so that we can measure and compare and analyze what works, what doesn't work. For instance, on the roof observations, if we are actually doing a comparable measure and we see that we test and let's do these for once a year instead of twice a year, and we see that we have the same results as far as failures, now we know. If we switch to one a year, lighten the load, we know that would work. And it'll allow us to compare against other states to see how they are doing theirs, to bring ours further into alignment. So the NOT Commission was designed to bring us into a comparable state in our preventive maintenance so that we can measure, develop best practices, and share those out.
Will that be part of the committee's work? These recommendations?
It won't be part, it will be part of this commission's work, yes. And we will need to report back out to you our progress on that as we are doing that. And this commission may want to have subgroups working, on things like that as well.
Thank you.
Very good questions.
Could I just add
Yes,
one
please.
one more thing about the roof surveys? Mr. Lombardo, the semi-annual roof surveys are also required for requests for a systemic roof replacement project. So we look at those also at that time. And one of the most prevalent deficiency across the board, no matter who the LEA is, has to do with stained ceiling tiles. And we're very sensitive to the possibility that of mold growth in these areas. So I know that stained ceiling tiles can have something to do with insulation of piping and many things, but roofs are a big cause. So it is, we ask for the roof surveys to be given to the inspectors when they go and do the surveys. I should say the assessors, when they go and do the surveys, and then they review them afterward to see what is identified and see how that lines up with what they see, and if those corrections are being made.
I have a question.
Yes.
At what point does a school become not adequate? As I'm looking at, for example, Baltimore County, I look at Lansdowne High School, for example, has 4 poor ratings. Rosedale Center has 5. If you switch over to Prince George's County, you have Fairmont Heights, which is not adequate. It's 14 poor ratings, and Magnolia Elementary has 8. But it's considered adequate. So at what level of matrix does something become not adequate?
There is a calculation made, and there are a number of items that are looked at. I think it's 35 or 37 categories. Each one of those are weighted, and so it is whatever it comes out to be in the end. It is 75 and below, basically between 65 and 75 is not adequate.
Okay.
So when you see these ratings, there may be some schools that are just below that bar, and then there are others that are further below. But we try to make this as clear as possible. We try to break it out as evenly as possible, and perhaps that should be another consideration. I mentioned 2 considerations earlier, but the other consideration is you could have a school that scored, 74.9, and it's below the rating level. I mean, I think it's below 76. So it is how the calculation comes out.
I just was wondering at what point it shifts to non-adequate versus how many poor ticks it has to switch over.
Well, it's not the number of poor, it's the rating, it's the number and the rating.
Okay,
It could have the rating, the level of 1, 2, or 3.
Thank you.
Other questions about the annual report? All right, if not, I'm going to read the motions.
Certainly. To approve the final draft of the FY 2018 report, Maintenance of Maryland's Public School Buildings, dated October 9th, 2018.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Move.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Joan.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the inspections. Appreciate your hard work. All right, let's move to our section 9, which is the COMAR revisions.
Madam Chair, you might remember that at your August 30th meeting, we brought a draft of the COMAR revisions. This is as a result to changes to law due to House Bill 1783 and some other legislation. We're trying to set clear expectations for our customers as quickly as possible. We, after your August 30th meeting, issued those COMAR revisions to the LEAs. We've also asked them for quite a bit of other information lately. We asked them to do a safety survey to identify how many areas of visual refuge they have behind doors that lock from the inside and to find out their safety priorities. As you recall, at your August 30th meeting, we also issued the safety application for the school safety grant program. We have issued a survey that has to do with high performance requirements for schools. All looking for the feedback that we know the LEAs have, that vital information to our program. However, we also understand that we have asked them for a lot of information lately, and the COMAR revisions put a little bit too much on their plate. We heard back from them that they needed more time. We feel like it's very important for them to have that time. We've extended the deadline for them to respond to us, and we hope to bring those revisions for your preliminary approval at your November meeting rather than this meeting as previously planned.
That sounds very reasonable. Any questions about that? Where are we with getting the results of the safety survey back?
I will defer to Joan.
We had the results from all of the LEAs except for 3. So we're just waiting a little bit longer, see if we can get those in.
All right, so can we anticipate those for our November meeting? Because I think it would be very interesting information to share with the commission members.
Yes, yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we have an additional agenda item today, which is the approval of the enhanced approval packages. And so, Mr. Mason, I will invite you to walk us through that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Salmon. Since many of you are new, first I'll just explain the enhanced approval package process. It was created through the Memorandum of Understanding that was set up when the 21st Century School Buildings Program was created. And it's an agreement among the 4 partners, the IAC, Baltimore City Public Schools, Baltimore City Government, and the Maryland Stadium Authority. For a project to get moving, the enhanced approval package, which consists of a feasibility study for the project, an outline of the scope of the project, as well as some preliminary drawings, not quite at the schematic level for a project. Those items have to be approved by all 4 partners of the MOU. So this EAP approval is something that's a part of the process for every 21st Century School Buildings Program project. First one we are considering is a revised approval for the Patterson High School, Claremont Middle High School project, essentially to increase the funding of that project and to approve the addition of environmental mitigation measures. During design, levels of concern of arsenic and chromium were discovered in soil and soil vapor. An engineering firm suggested certain mitigation measures involving removal and replacement of topsoil, installation of vapor barrier and underslab ventilation system to the building to both prevent any intrusion as well as evacuate any vapor if it is detected. So those measures will be added to the project, as well as those costs, which add approximately $16 million to the project costs. So Maryland Stadium Authority and Baltimore City Public Schools wanted to bring this back before all 4 partners to get approval of those measures and that additional funding.
Questions?
Okay, I think I have a question. Can you? I don't know what this is on.
Go.
The Stadium Authority deals with how many school systems besides Baltimore City?
Just Baltimore City.
At present, just Baltimore City.
Just Baltimore City, thank you.
Brad, that sounds like a lot of money for abatement of that. Is that normal?
Well, the So the cost breakdown is about $750,000 for the vapor mitigation, about $5 million for the soil costs, and the bulk of the cost is escalation because of the time that this will add to the overall construction duration of the
So
project.
that would be other issues, not just that.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions?
But the extra costs are a result of that. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
The delay costs,
So the direct costs of the mitigation and soil costs is $6 million, and then the overall time extension is projected to add $10 million to the project cost, which, yes, is a result of the time needed to, after discovery of these problems, do further investigations and determine what solutions would be effective.
Yeah, there have already been delays to this point. Everything had to come to a stop to see what can we do next. And so there's been a thorough understanding from the folks that originally identified the benzene and the arsenic in the soil, which is the bulk of this cost of mitigation, all around the school, to come up with a solution that everybody felt comfortable with. The Maryland Stadium Authority have now said they are comfortable with the solution, back with the consultants. A foot of soil had to be removed off the entire site and disposed of due to arsenic contamination. By taking that off and then putting new soil back, that makes the site safe, as well as the mitigation under the building, so that the volatile vapors can't come back up through the facility. And if they do, they're evacuated and disposed of so that people aren't breathing it. But it's the delays that cost about 4% a year. And we've already had about a year of delay before, just to get to this point, plus then this work has to occur.
Project was in process and had this on.
The project was delayed for a year?
The process at this point has been delayed about a year because of the discovery of this problem by, early on, the architects have to have soil, geoengineers go out and look at load bearing and that, to see what the new facility is going to carry. At the same time, adjoining this site was a Superfund site. So wisely, they tested to see if there were any volatiles or anything dangerous in the school site, and they discovered some. It wasn't at a high level, but being a school, everybody's very cautious, and the solution had to be developed.
So the
Put
project
your mic
had
on.
not- I apologize. The project had not yet, construction had not commenced.
That's correct. The construction, we're still in the design stage.
All right, other questions?
Just one question.
Put your
So,
mic on.
Testing?
Yes.
So when it comes to soil, always there's the unknown. And do they have a measure of soils already that they're expecting to have to remove?
It's the entire site. And I can get back to you with the size, the acreage of the site. So we can speak of acre feet there or cubic yards. They're removing.
It's 267,711 gross square feet. It's a lot.
Yeah. So with that, as far as perhaps further undercuts that they might have to do because of unforeseen situations, are there any unit costs put in place so that there's no unanticipated cost?
I'd have to ask that question of the Stadium Authority about unit costs that are included in the contract.
Yeah. Just a recommendation, that's all, that would be put in place.
Good
We
recommendation.
can check that.
Bob, you said this was it's adjacent to a Superfund site?
Yes, it's adjacent to a Superfund site.
And Superfund sites usually have federal funding?
Yes, Yes, they did. In fact, as they cleaned up the adjacent site, and this is Maryland Stadium Authority, as well as Baltimore City, have tried to talk to the the federal folks to get information back. I don't think it's a closed book at this time, but I don't know if there's funding available to assist in this. It was, again, an adjacent site. There was some leakage on that site that has gone underground. The stuff on the surface obviously was there the entire time, the arsenic and that.
That was my question, whether there would be federal funding available for what we're doing here.
I know that the questions have been asked. Jamie, do you know anything more? We asked the questions. I believe Baltimore City has asked the questions, and so has the Stadium Authority. Do we know anything more? We'll ask the question again, and appreciate you asking, and get back to you with an answer at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so this, the total project cost is $111 million now with this additional $16 million. It kind of puts it in perspective. It was, the budget was $95 million for this project. Patterson High School is going to be totally demolished, and they're not sure yet what they're going to do with the Claremont Middle High School, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The sites are pretty scarce in that area, so I think one of the first things.
I'm sure that's part of the issue.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? And are these, do we need approval for these, or do we
Yes.
need a motion to approve? Well, you want to go through the rest of them, Fred, because I know there's 4 more.
Okay.
The next one is Highlandtown
Next one
Elementary.
is
Middle.
Highlandtown Elementary Middle School, and this project is an addition to increase the capacity of the school from 536 students to 914 students. It is currently a pre-K to 8 school and will remain so. The addition will consolidate the middle school grades into the addition. The southeast portion of Baltimore City is experiencing overall population growth and student population growth, and there is a need for additional seats in that general area, and this project will address that need.
I'm sure there must be a regulation requiring, related to the proximity of school to the population. But Baltimore City's population is not growing. It's been decreasing, and I wonder whether there aren't other school facilities with excess capacity.
Not near this school. So there are, but not in this part of the city. In the pre-K to 8 schools, as well as pre-K to 5 traditional elementary schools, are neighborhood schools. And there aren't schools with excess capacity in this broad neighborhood.
Other questions? All right, let's move on to Commodore John Rogers Elementary and Middle School.
Commodore John Rogers is also an elementary middle school in southeast Baltimore, not too far from Highlandtown, and this would increase the capacity of the school from 600 students to a bit over 1,000 students, and again consolidate the middle school grades into the addition.
And that almost doubles the size of the school seats.
It does come close to, increases it by about 70%, correct.
All right, and the next one is James Mosier Elementary School.
Next one is James Mosier Elementary School. At this school, the grade configuration is being changed to a pre-K to 2 school. This project works in conjunction with a previously approved project for Calverton Elementary Middle School, which is literally around the corner. It's a block and a half away. That's a replacement school that will house grades 3 through 8. So this project facilitates reconfiguring James Mosher to pre-K to 2. It will do new construction to bring the gym and cafeteria up to current standards, and then renovate the entire existing school.
Okay. And then Robert Coleman Elementary School.
And Robert Coleman is a renovation of what is now an open space school into a school with traditional classrooms. The interior will be reconfigured so that all the classrooms will have natural lighting, the appropriate separations, and there will be some very minor additions on the front of the building to correct the entry sequence to make the community entrance somewhat separate and more accessible.
Questions on that package? All right, let's go back and let's vote on these individually. And before we vote, I just want some more explanation maybe for other members as well, and that is, these are schools that are basically still in the design process?
Yes,
All of
yes,
them.
the enhanced approval package enables the design process to move forward. So these are sort of at the pre-schematic phase, and once the enhanced approval package has been approved, then they would proceed with the complete design process.
Then we would allocate funds subsequent to that design process.
No, the approval from the IAC, the only approval is at the enhanced approval package, so that's why it's important to know as much as possible about the project scope and the cost estimate. Subsequent to that, Maryland State Department of Education, acting for the IAC, provides comments on the schematic design and on the design development package.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to get at for everyone listening is what happens to the funding commitment? Is that already made when we make this motion? 'Cause I
Yes,
want
the
people to
funding.
understand that
Yes.
that is a commitment for funding.
Yes.
And how does that then translate to other requests from Baltimore City?
The funding stream very good question. The funding stream for these 21st century building programs projects is bonds issued by the Maryland Stadium Authority, and the repayment is backed by allocations of $20 million each from Baltimore City Public Schools through their operating budget, from the City of Baltimore, largely through their portion of casino revenue, and from the state of Maryland through a portion of lottery revenue. So these projects don't impact the regular Baltimore City capital improvement
Right, so
program
what I'm trying to say is
request.
this is not part of our 400 million capital
No, it
improvement
is not.
program. It's very important, I think, for people to understand this, because this is a new thing, and I just don't want it to kind of go over the top and people are going to come back and say, well, what did you do? Do you understand what you did?
Right.
So I'm just trying to be very descriptive about what we are taking a motion on. Now, are there questions because of that discussion?
Yes. What is the effect if the commission were not to approve an EAP?
The memorandum of understanding does outline a dispute resolution process that would involve the four partners of the of the MOU. I believe the first step is the superintendent, and then the executive, the state superintendent of schools, and then the executive committee for the memorandum of understanding, which is made up of the four partners. So that would be the dispute resolution process that is outlined in the memorandum of understanding, and we can send out a copy
So my
of
next
it.
question is, because of the new law, I'm going to ask this to our legal counsel, do we need to have another MOU? Because I'm assuming the existing MOU is between the old IAC and everyone else.
I think you are right. I think that's something we need to take a look at. We have amended the MOU at least once, and I think that makes a lot of sense to contact the other members to the
Yeah,
agreement.
I think it's really important for all of our members to understand what's in this process, and I'm going to ask to defer the approval of this plan until we take a look at the MOU, and everyone knows what their role is in this process. It's only a month, so I'd like to put this on the November agenda and have Fred come back and let's run through this once we understand really what our role is and what we're committing to. I want to make sure everyone understands what I think I understand on this whole issue. So that's your charge, Elliot. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions? Yes.
There were one or two questions raised during that discussion, and I wonder if those could possibly be addressed, such as the federal funding and perhaps a better understanding of the soil analysis and the quantity, the soil quantities, and since we're going to revisit it
Absolutely.
in November.
So, Fred, will you make sure that we have all the information from that first project to disseminate? And also work with Jamie to see what we can find out about the federal funds that may or may not be available, so we have a demonstrative answer by next month, not just we think we've played it out or we don't know. We need to have a demonstrative answer. Either there's funding available or there is funding not available.
Can I make one more request?
Yes, please,
On these
Brian.
presentations, very helpful. If I'd like just to have some metrics to compare these things, like, for example, we're looking at the Patterson High School, this increase as a result of the environmental essentially is $60 a square foot.
That's
Of the
correct.
building. $10,000 a student, just for that one component of it, where the whole thing is $70,000 a student or $410 a foot. You compare it to the addition, which is actually $540 a square foot and $50,000 a student for the additional capacity. So if we could, in these, when it's given to us, if we could kind of have those metrics, like the per square foot cost, the per student cost, I think it would help us understand, if something's way out of whack. I mean, I just did the math myself as we
Yeah, I
did
think
it.
it's really a good idea to have those metrics, so we'll try to make sure we provide that. And I also want to say that it's really hard when we're sitting here and we're not doing walkthroughs of schools. As a former superintendent, I used to take the director of the IAC out to walk through the schools because then you could really see the condition. Patterson High School is one of the oldest high schools in Baltimore City. There is probably a very good reason for demolishing that school. So we also have to keep those kinds of things. We can look at metrics, but we also have to look at the reality of what the school buildings look like and how they're facilitated. So just want to
Absolutely.
put that in the mix as well.
I have walked through Patterson, and it's not salvageable.
But no, I'm not
Yeah,
questioning
I know,
that. I just
I
would
know.
like to have it so as we do our
Understand.
analysis
I-
that
I
we have
welcome
something
that.
to
That's
compare.
good.
I just want to add the other layer on, that's why we have LEAs that do their due diligence and bring to us their best thinking based on what their needs are.
And we can summarize just what I said.
Absolutely.
Here's why that school needs to be torn down rather than replaced, and give you a brief understanding. Here's the solution, here's why it's the best solution, here's what the cost is comparative. So we will do just that.
Madam Chair.
Because we are going to have some very difficult decisions to make as a body. And I want to make sure we make the very best decisions for all of the kids in Maryland.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, I just want to join in and support the suggestion that we look at all of this very carefully. I've been involved with school funding forever at the state level, and I think we need to have all of the basic information we can get on how this works. And the comparisons are absolutely necessary.
Right.
For us to make a good decision that supports the replacement of Patterson. I cannot vote on something that I don't fully have the information for.
Right.
Even though the case for replacing Patterson is
Sure.
there. I
Right.
understand this, okay?
And Madam Chair, just on that point, sometimes the subject matter experts, like for instance Maryland Stadium Authority, or the LEA themselves, whoever they are, I would welcome them being able to bring that expertise directly to.
And we've had them come before the IAC before in these kinds of situations, as you all will remember, or some of you will remember. So we can do that as well if we need to. Other suggestions or questions before we close today's meeting?
That early? We were running.
Yes, we are.
There was a question, I won't be able to pull it up, but in reading the material, the IAC was charged in the legislation to analyze the effect on school construction costs of prevailing wages.
You want to say that again into your mic?
I apologize.
Yeah, we have to make sure that you are speaking in your mic, because a reminder, we are live streamed and people are watching us and they have to be able to hear us. So we're going to have to be very cognizant. I would suggest that you leave your mics on all the time and pull them forward when you're going to ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question relates to the enabling I guess it's the enabling legislation. It was in the package that I read, and within the legislation is a requirement of the Interagency Commission to analyze the effect on school construction costs of prevailing wages. And I wanted to ask, what is the status of that requirement? What actions have been or are anticipated to be taken in connection with that?
Remember, I'm Mr. Lombard, I'm not aware of that particular, and where,
It is in House Bill 1783, and maybe Elliot can find it faster than I can. I saw him rifling through his papers too.
As I was reading it, I was struck by, I thought, well, okay,
One of
good,
us will
good.
get to it. The IAC is charged with doing an analysis of the impact of prevailing wage within the next several years. That's a project that did have a longer timeline, and I suspect that the reason why Director Gorel isn't completely aware or doesn't recall it is because have had so many other things from 1783 that had to be done immediately that we've been focused on.
So Elliot, can you review that statute?
It's Section 7, so it's in the uncodified parts of the law. And you're correct. It essentially says the IAC will examine effect of prevailing wage on school construction costs and report to the Governor General Assembly by July 1, 2020.
So we have a little bit of time, and that's probably why we haven't gotten to it, since we had the other things that were
I have it on my list.
weighing very heavy on our to-do list. So we'll get back to you on our plans for that.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Denise?
In reviewing Patterson High School and the contamination situation, what keeps it from becoming a brownfield site where you can't construct on it at all if there's that level of contamination?
That would be the EPA make that decision, and they have not made that decision. We did ask that question early on. There actually is a report due of EPA out this past year. I think it was for 2017, and it never got completed. And I'm looking to Jamie to see if we know anything more on that. I can provide to you everything that we have, but do you recall that we got anything further?
I believe that what you're talking about is the update for the prior mitigation efforts, and I have not seen that yet.
And we also had the state environmental agency take a look at the mitigation, what the results of the tests were, what the mitigation opportunities were. They didn't have any concern either. So to be able to just say that it is, we would expect that the EPA would have made that comment early on. But this is far outside of where we would make a decision as an agency. It's very good to ask the questions. I can now turn back around and ask the Maryland Stadium Authority and Baltimore City.
It just seems with this excessive amount of remediation as far as funding goes, it would be something that's much more serious than originally considered.
It is serious, and that's why I did ask the question, along with Baltimore City, why can't we find other sites nearby? They convinced me that there weren't other sites nearby to be able to use instead of this site. And where this school is located, they have a population at least stable. It might even be growing with that particular demographic. And it is the school is in really bad shape. It's a place where you can't have good learning. The air conditioning, just the surroundings and everything else. So it's a problem that needs to move forward. I think there's a strong desire to move the project forward because of the consequences of the kids being in the facility they're in now. I'm not trying to make excuses. I will go back and get a definite decision, both on the dollars that the EPA might be able to put into it and how EPA, as well as the state environmental agency, feel about using this site for another school. And maybe I could work with Elliot in drafting that response back to the IAC.
I think that would be good, because I think there's been enough questions raised today about this particular project that we need more information before we will go forward.
Thank you.
Madam,
Yes.
can you hear me? Where do they go when they're going to tear this site down? Of course, it's a very old building and whatnot. Where are the kids going during the meantime?
Fred can answer that.
Yeah, the new school will be constructed essentially on the athletic fields of the existing school. So Patterson High School will remain in operation during construction. They'll move into the new building,
And then
tear
they'll
down the old
demolish the
building,
old
and do
one.
the rest of the site work.
Other questions or comments? Secretary McCord.
I just want to commend the chair for holding this over for us. If we're asked to approve $100 million worth of projects for 5 projects, if we approved $300 million for the entire state, that's a third of what we do. And so I want to make sure that we understand it, we understand our role, and we understand each project. So I commend your decision to hold it over. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for your attendance today.